Well, hey there, Meg. Thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast. And I'm so excited to share this time with you and to introduce you to my audience and for us to have an amazing conversation. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you share a little bit more about your story, and then we're going to chat.
Sure. Thanks, Shelby, for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you as well. Well, I'll start off by I think some of our earliest messages about alcohol are when we're very young and they get etched into those neural pathways at a young age. And my mom, there's three of us, I'm the oldest, and my dad traveled a lot for work. And so she was basically a single mom. And when my dad would come home from his work trips, she would whisk him off to a cocktail party, or we were having a cocktail party at our house. So she used to, when the cocktail parties were at our house, she would dress me up, if I'm going to age myself now, in my best Jessica McClintock dress and
Mhm.
have me serve hors d'oeuvres to all of her inebriated guests. And I really saw that as this is a way you connect with other people. This is how you have fun. This is a way to let off steam after a hard week, whether you're a single mom or just parenting in general, or like my dad working really hard. And so those messages came in a very young age. And then in eighth grade, I went to a new school and I really wanted to be part of the popular group. And I had a sleepover, and those girls came to my house, and I really wanted to impress them. And again, I'm going to age myself, but they said, "Can we raid your parents' liquor cabinet?" And we did shots of peach schnapps. And that was my very first hangover. I threw up all the next day. And just thought it was completely disgusting. But high school and college really kind of went the same way, where it was drinking to fit in, where I could sneak it in at parties. Unfortunately, I lost my best friend my freshman year of high school due to drinking and driving. So it was a vow that I always kept, which was that I would never drink and drive. But really, the only dangers that I had in my mind about alcohol were you don't drink and drive, and you don't drink if you're pregnant. And really, beyond that, I didn't really see anything wrong with it, or was explained. Nothing was ever, explained to me that there was a carcinogen or a
Mhm.
toxin or depressant. Nothing like that, right? So it was just this social drinking that binge, maybe type drinking in college in particular. And I do talk about it in the book. And just a quick trigger warning, because I'm not going to go into it, but I was sexually assaulted while drinking in college and post college, and that trauma really threw me into a over functioning state of being, so that I was staying busy and not feeling that pain, and really kind of feeling like I'm as good as my sales. So I got into sales after college, and it was very much of that work hard, play hard culture, where there was a lot of drinking there too. Um, and then I fell into beauty sales, aesthetic sales, medical sales. So I started selling women on your appearance and the way that you look. And I had fallen into that myself. I had done some modeling. I was literally the poster child for the big alcohol industry. I was the Guinness girl, the Budweiser girl, the Jägermeister girl. I would do shots after I was done work, and with Jägermeister, and think like I just really was sucking down the Kool-Aid at that time, and really objectifying my body and finding my approval and my worth and my appearance. So all of that to be said is that I was really in a state of looking outside of myself for my worth, my approval, and my just not feeling good enough. And so um, I met my husband, and we got married, and we had two kids. And I just found myself falling into the mommy wine culture, where I was working all day, taking care of my clients' needs, coming home, taking care of my kids' needs, and really not even able to fully say to you what my needs were. But I knew that I was exhausted. And so my me time, I deserve a drink, really came into that mommy wine culture, where it was like a societal permission slip that said, hey, it's okay to take a break. hey, this is where we rest. Have another drink. I bought the tea towels and the napkins and the t-shirts that normalized that permission slip. And what ended up happening was I had 3 back-to-back life incidents that happened 2 weeks apart, and they were all very big ones. And I talk about it in the book, and I won't get into it here. But what that did was that shifted my drinking from that social weekend usage to nightly medicinal usage. I was overwhelmed with anxiety and depression, and I thought, because society had told me that if you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, have a drink. And so that's exactly what I did. And what ended up happening was those 3 incidents resolved, got better over time, but then I was stuck with this nightly wine habit. And so I went to my therapist at the time and I said, I think I have a drinking problem. And it took a lot of courage to tell her, because I had been suffering silently and internally, like looking around, feeling like my drinking looked like my friends and family. When I would kind of be like, do you think I drink too much? They're like, oh my God, no, you drink just like I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this very confusing space that I felt very alone in, and I felt like shame about, and I felt, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get this under control? So I thought I would do this 21-day reset to reset my drinking. And I thought I would get some tools in my tool belt and be able to go back to the way I used to drink socially. And unbeknownst to me, I thought like it would be me and maybe 3 other women in this group. And there were thousands in there. And I'm like, why are there so many women in here? And wow, I am not alone. And in that 21-day reset of just being sober curious and really not wanting to break up with alcohol, the veil started to be lifted as I was reading This Naked Mind by Annie Grace and getting all of the emails every day on how to surf the crave. And that I never realized why I couldn't quit more than 2 weeks. I would quit a lot, but I would never be able to quit more than 2 weeks. And then I find out that it takes more than, like up to 2 weeks for alcohol to leave your body. And I'm thinking, God, here I am beating myself up. It's exactly when the alcohol is leaving. And so I just became more and more curious, especially being in pharmaceutical sales. I love the science. So I started digging into more of the science behind it. And then I really was like, what am I doing to my body? What, why are we not warned that this is a toxin? Why, like, if it were to be FDA approved, like I sell pharmaceutical drugs, like if it were to be FDA approved now, it would never get approved. It would not get approved. And I just was like, but we're all guzzling it down unknowingly. And it's almost like you have to hit this space of feeling like you need to look at it or need help in order to find out the truth about it. And that upset me. But I really was trapped in this detox to retox loop. And when I found Jolene Park's description of gray area drinking, I was like, oh my God, this is in the medical literature. This is on the alcohol use disorder spectrum. This is exactly everything she said was like, this is me. I don't have a lot of external consequences. I take lots of breaks, but I go back to my drinking. I suffer silently. Usually we're, go-getters and high-achieving people. So on the outside, it doesn't look like anything's wrong. In fact, I was winning awards at work. My marriage wasn't in the throes. It wasn't like what we see depicted on TV and in the movies. And so I thought, well, okay, I am a gray area drinker. I am going to find a book or books on gray area drinking. And I couldn't find any. And I thought, wait a second. This is a term that's been in the medical literature for a decade, but there's not any books like specifically describing it and what it is and how to see if you relate to it. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to diagnose anyone, but I dedicated a whole chapter in my book to questions to ask yourself and descriptions of what it is, so that if it sounds like your story or feels like yours, that you don't feel so alone. And that I've had a lot of women say it's given them the permission slip to explore their drinking. And everybody's a different shade on this gray area drinking. And I'll just give a quick what is it, because I'm sure people listening right now are like, well, what is it? So of course you have people who have never drank, right? on one end of the spectrum. You have the kind of what people call the take it or leave it. I kind of like to describe it as my in-laws who might split a beer on their birthdays, the two of them, have a sip of champagne at a wedding, and that's about it.
Mhm.
Then on the other far spectrum, you have 10% of the population that is physically and psychologically dependent on alcohol, would need a medical detox like seizures, that type of thing. And that's true alcoholism. Everything in between is gray area drinking. So it's this vast, wide category that we're just not talking, in my opinion, enough about. And I was like, I love to journal. And so I was journaling through my whole journey, and as I was becoming more sober curious, I was like, okay, now I'm going to go for 60 days. Now I'm going to go for 100 days. And then my husband quit with me, which I know is a rarity as well. But I just remember him saying to me, "Is this like a forever thing?" And I was like, I can't figure out one reason to go back. Like I'm really doing the research here and like digging and getting curious on what it's providing to me. And it really wasn't until I listened to my inner knowing, which I also talk a lot about in the book, which is our intuition, that was pleading with me to do something about my toxic relationship with alcohol, that I actually ended up quitting. If I had listened to my therapist, to the outside world, to my friends and family, I probably would still be drinking. And so for anybody listening, I think we all have that inner knowing that pops up and says, this is not serving us. Look at this. There's something wrong here. Like I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. Every day was a slight shade of gray. Um, and so they say you write the book that you couldn't find or that you needed at the time. And that's why I wrote Intoxicating Lies, One Woman's Journey to Freedom from Gray Area Drinking. And it goes over not only the lies that about alcohol, the 5 most intoxicating lies about alcohol, but it also goes over the intoxicating lies that we tell ourselves about our self-worth. So I go through some stories of things that happened to me, like I mentioned earlier, and how I overcame those as well with somatic therapy and how to regulate your nervous system. Another thing we're not taught a lot.
Oh, thank you so much, Meg, for sharing your story and for being so courageous in that. It's something that most of us do a lot. However, I think I take for granted how much courage it takes to put ourselves out there in this way. And no matter how long we've been at it, it's still sharing some of the most vulnerable parts of ourselves in a very public way. And you do that in your book. I do that in my book as well. And you and I have a lot in common, including geographic location, which I just learned today from reading through your material, and which is really really cool. Your book highlights the lies about alcohol as well as the self-worth things. And my work and the TEDx talk that I did this past year, and then in a lot of the ways that I work with women, is involving the 5 lies that I believe most women tell ourselves. I'm pretty sure that when I was reading the book, there are definitely some overlap there. For example, one of my top ones is, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And that is that was like the theme throughout my kind of trauma history that led into my what I believe led into my alcoholism and addiction, and then kind of threaded throughout the rest of my life, that I really had to unravel
Mhm.
with a lot of recovery work, years of therapy, and then some other really strong complementary types of modalities to help unpack and continue the learning well
Yeah.
beyond that initial phase of recovery.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can relate to that, but what do you believe was the kind of main lie for you?
Well, the main lie for me in drinking was that I deserved it. So I was really using alcohol as a reward, as me time, as a way to decompress. When I had the life back to back instance, it was kind of like a way of shutting off the chatter that was happening in my mind, that was kind of nonstop. I just had so much anxiety and so much that was happening all at once, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And
Mhm.
so what's easy is the easy staples button, right? Just check out with a drink and it's right there. It's easily accessible. And my husband didn't really know how to support me. I would just have tears coming down my eyes every night, and he would just walk in with a glass of wine like, I don't even know how to help you. And And so, he had lost his job, and I became the primary income maker overnight. And it was a pretty hard thing he went through with his job loss, and we weren't sure if he was going to be able to work again, which really put a lot of pressure on me. My best friend from high school, we unexpectedly lost her husband, and our families were very tight knit. And then a loved one had come forward and had told me she had been sexually molested as a child, and she was ready to get justice. And that resurfaced all of my sexual
Mm-hmm.
assaults. And so I wanted to get the justice for her that I never got for myself. And I got very deep and entangled in her journey. And because it was so deep and dark, and it resurfaced so much unresolved trauma, I was really escaping in alcohol. So I can really relate to what you're saying, because I think we kind of use alcohol as like, and I talk about it a little bit too, like we're gliding through a party and it seems fine and it's fun and it's like harmless. And then all of a sudden there's a divorce, a death, a job loss, a something, right? An assault, like whatever it is that can catapult your drinking and shift it in a way that you can't even foresee is happening. And I think that as hard, I've had a lot of women say, like, how have you been able to talk about it? And it really was doing that somatic therapy of going back with my life coach. And I know it's a privilege too. I know that doing some of this work is costly, but I will tell you, I had been in a lot of talk therapy and thought I had dealt with stuff. And it wasn't until I got into somatic therapy did I realize it was still stuck in my body. So when I would watch movies and there would be a rape scene of some sort, I would start
Mm-hmm.
shaking and sweating and having basically a post traumatic stress
Right.
disordered response. And that scared me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like still in my body. And that's when I started doing somatic therapy. And it was life changing for me. And so I feel like when we can share our stories, as vulnerable as they are, it helps, in particular, women who, like, around our drinking, there's a lot of shame. And then when these types of things happen to women as well, there's a lot of shame. And we know that when we cast shame into the light, right, it dissipates. And in community, we can feel less alone. So that was really my goal, is to have other women say, oh my gosh, me too. And I can heal from this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I think that you're so right about the life events that go on. Something I was talking about earlier this week is, the challenges that we have in life never stop. And really, life is hard for all of us. That's
Mhm.
something I say regularly. None of us is really free from that. Some of us get dealt a worse hand than others, but we all go through really challenging times no matter what. So we might be in a good stage, for a little while, and then something very difficult happens, and then you stay there for a while, and then you get back into a good stage. But none of us is immune from the just dramatic challenges of life.
True.
And one of the things that I heard someone say last week that I shared on my social media because it was just so impactful was, we a lot of times we're waiting as a society or as humans, we're waiting for things to be easier, waiting for the job to get easier, waiting for the grief to get easier, or waiting for the parenting to get easier. And this woman, she was a coach, I think a basketball coach of some type, kind of giving a speech to her teams, and she said it's never going to get easier. And
Mhm.
so the only thing that we can do is get better at doing hard things.
Yes,
And
I
I
listened to
was
that
like,
episode. That's so true.
wow, this is like so impactful to me because we just get better at it,
Yes.
and sometimes we have our breakdowns, sometimes we do other things. And for me, something I've had to really look out for in my recovery, and I've been kind of sober for kind of a long time from substances, but I can do things to harm myself still that are very alcoholic, right? Like overeating or
Mhm.
just indulging and binge eating that's very
Mhm.
inappropriate and harmful to myself. And that's become a problem in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years for me, on in and out, and so I
Okay.
have to watch out for that. That's something that can come in because when those life challenges happen, I can
Mhm.
quickly be like, well, it's time to hit the Chick-fil-A for that milkshake,
Right.
or whatever, and then consistently be doing that over and over and over again to try to soothe myself when I really need to do is get better at managing those feelings, get better at doing hard things.
Yeah,
Um,
I just had an F it moment this past Friday, and I got in a fight with everybody in my house. So both of my teenagers, who, they don't like me anyway. And then I really wasn't happy with my husband's response to what was happening in the house. And so I was fighting with all of my people. Kind of reminded me of COVID, but I could actually get out of the house, right? And so, and I talk about this in this as well, at the F it moments, right? And when life is really tough and it presses up against you, and man, we live in an instant gratification society, and you just want to hit that eject button, right? Like I was just like, I want to be out of here. And so it I've been alcohol free for 4 years, and the cravings are far less, right? I mean, so far less. It's so infrequent, but I could tell you it popped up like that. It's still in your brain, and it was like, oh, this would have been the time that I would have drank an entire bottle. And so what I did was I told everybody I needed some alone time. And I mean, I'm lucky that my kids are old enough they can take care of themselves. I climbed into bed at 5:30 with some good dark chocolate, a good book, some trash TV. And I let myself feel those feelings and honored them and acknowledged them. Of course, I feel this way. Of course, there's a story I'm telling myself about this. And
mhm,
is that really true? So, like, what the steps I've tried to do to go through the feeling is like, stop, honor it, acknowledge
mhm,
it, sit with it, get curious about it. Is it really true? Journal,
mhm.
possibly, if I have time, and then ask myself, like, what do I need in that moment? Is it rest?
Yeah,
It's usually rest.
yeah,
And because I'm a go, 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 my overfunctioning is still something that I have to catch myself constantly feeling like the need to prove. And so a lot of times, if I slow down and just really say to myself, Meg, what is it that you need? It's rest. And we're not modeled that as women a lot in our society either. It's like hustle and grind and do. And so I have to like really talk myself off, like, it is okay. The three things you did today, that is enough. You are enough, and I have to like remind myself, of course, this is little Meg who grew up not feeling this way and had to prove herself. Of course, she's coming out. She's here to protect me. And so I can get the compassion then, because I'm like, oh, it's little Meg trying so hard, right, to like prove her worth. And this is what she's been trained to do. Of course, she's showing up. And like, hugging my inner child and being like, it's gonna be okay. We are, if we stop right now, we are not a failure. And I can tell you, after Friday night, I did not get out of my bed from 5:30 till the next morning, but I felt so much better. It was like I could see my people again, engage with them again. I knew that if I kept myself in that environment, it was not going to be good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you did exactly the right thing. And I love how you share that you honor and respected those feelings and yourself. And that's so important and a big part of that emotional sobriety that we talk about a lot in the long-term recovery journey, because that's where the rubber meets the road really in managing our difficult emotions. Because in early sobriety, I know you shared it in your book too, but it's like a time of special needs, right? There's a lot
Right.
going on. We really need a lot of hand holding. We need different things. But then after that first year or so, we start to change and really wake up to
Yes.
life, and our brain is clear. We start to feel those desires in our heart kind of bubbling up, like things that we might want to do or might want to pursue, or maybe we're in a dead end job that we need to get out of, or a relationship, or we maybe want to get in a relationship or have a baby or whatever it is. Like they start to come up to the surface because the opportunities in life are available to us now.
So
Uh,
true.
how did you experience that for you after that first year of sobriety? How did life change for you?
Oh, it's exactly like you said. It was like I woke up to everything that I felt like I had been fogged out and asleep
Yeah.
to for like 40 years. And you're right. The first year was just all about the alcohol and getting the alcohol out of my life. And kind of it got to a point where I was like, am I going to have to think about this all the time?
Yeah.
And then it just shifts. And like you said, I feel like then we all go into the emotional sobriety, which is like the earth school that we never had. And I feel like we need in this world, which is how do I deal with all the things that are bubbling up now that haven't been dealt with? And what are the ways that what is true self care? It's not manicures and facials, right? It's really like processing these emotions and being able to sit with, like, if we can sit with ourselves and our tough feelings, then we can sit with somebody else and sit with their uncomfortable feelings and not have to fix or rescue, because as women we've been told to like nurture, fix, rescue, and I was really caught up in that, like jumping in and got to save the day, just like I did with my loved one, right? And it like, then when I woke up to everything I had to deal with, I was like, excuse my friend, crap, I don't have time for anybody else's stuff. I've got enough on my plate to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And I can show up for my people and being now and learn to like hold space for them, right?
Mhm.
And validate their feelings and honor, acknowledge it, but I don't have to fix it and I don't have to rescue it and I don't have to control it. Man, that opened up so much freedom and space in my life to focus more on me. And now every day I wake up and I think, what does Meg need today? Like, what is it? Is it journaling? Is it walking? Is it a good podcast in my ears? How do I find the joy and the beauty in the day? So I have this thing that I do. If you follow me on social media, which is find the beauty in the day. And every day when I go for a walk, which I prefer to be outside, and it's not absolute perfectionism because I don't believe in that either, but most days I will post a picture of something beautiful. So it can be a flower, a sunset, a rock, whatever it is. And it's that moment of gratitude that really shifts something in your brain. It's like I take that picture of it and I think, no matter what's going on that day, this is a moment of just like, I'm here with this beautiful sunset and it is gorgeous. And how lucky am I, right? Even though I might be having the worst day. And so that's one simple thing that I know people are really busy and they're like, I don't even have time to do a gratitude list. Well, that's if you're out on a walk, take a picture of something
Mhm.
you're grateful for.
I love that. That's so cool. And what a great way to curate your social media feed with just things that people want to look at, beautiful things that are in nature or even people that are important to you. It's amazing because sometimes we get inundated with other plaques, with sentiments that maybe we're tired of or
Right.
the pleasantries of life that are just like tried and true, and we're just like over it, right? But looking
Yeah.
at beautiful photos I don't think it's kind of timeless, never gets old. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's almost like I get excited like a little girl, like when I used to play in the woods and I would play in the creek and clean the creek. And, it's kind of like finding that all in wonder. So I collect heart rocks and
Mhm.
I look for them everywhere. And when I'm down at the beach, they are all over the beach. And so it's like being in connection with nature and life and feeling like it's happening for me versus to me. When I was stuck in drinking, life was happening to me. I was caught up in the drama triangle. I was either rescuing, judging, or persecuting. And as soon as like you said, what happened for me in that second year is I got out of that drama triangle and I got into the empowerment dynamic, which is a really great book called TED, The Empowerment Dynamic,
Mm.
by David Emerald. And it's this tiny little book and it changed my life because
Right.
it allowed me to see where I was stuck in the drama and how to shift into empowerment and to be the creator of my life, that I had a choice every day to see these hard things that were coming up. Like you said, they come up over and over again. Life's just because you quit drinking doesn't mean life is any easier. And so when they come in now, I'm like, wonder why this person is triggering me. Oh, right. It reminds me of XYZ, my mom, my sister, my brother, whatever, my dad. And why is it that they are triggering me? And then I get real curious about it. And then I am like, oh, this person's actually a gift. They helped me realize that I had an unresolved wound with my mom or whoever. And so it's allowed me to increase my curiosity and my compassion and find awe and wonder in everything that comes in. So I
That's
just think if
awesome.
we lived more in that state, we would all be in a better world.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just to shift gears for a minute. I'm curious, because you work in an interesting field, in
Mhm.
that pharmaceutical slash beauty industry, which is, I don't know, I've never worked in it, but I can imagine slightly cutthroat, as far as what the obvious things like the way you look, the way you present yourself, the success around it, but also in the social aspect, I would imagine there's quite a bit of socializing, happy hours, travel, things like this that are heavily alcohol related.
Mhm.
So I'm curious on a couple things, I guess. One is, kind of how maybe this has changed for you in
Yeah.
the last little bit of time, like how you manage being in an industry that's so focused on the things like outward appearance, or some
So
people
I'm
may.
no longer in that industry. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't clear about that. So, yeah, I'm 9 years now almost in orphan and rare disease. So, I'm in an immunocompromised autoimmune disease now for the past
Okay.
9 years. But yes, when I was caught up in it, and this was before I became sober curious, I started having little red flags. Like I was running around town like I was curing cancer. I was working like Wall Street pressure to fix people's wrinkles. And I mean, I launched Botox and Restylane, big drugs, right? Like I did some big drugs. And I was not only burning out, but I just felt like I wasn't really truly helping women. In fact, I was selling them on like this is your worth. And I was still kind of caught up in it at that point, right? It was like you said, it wasn't until I stopped drinking that I
Mhm.
really, really woke up. Thankfully, I had already left that industry. But still, pharmaceutical sales, I will
Yeah.
say, is a big drinking culture. And
Yes.
it's kind of like ironic, right? Because we're about health and diseases, and so it doesn't fall short on me. Like I'm very keenly aware um, of it in the industry. And so I'm lucky that I have a manager that is very supportive of it and knows about my book, and a team that is very supportive as well. And I will say there's been a shift in the industry as well. So recently, it no longer is open bars. It's drink tickets at meetings. So they don't allow you to have more than two drinks. So it is changing.
Hmm.
Going out to dinner with doctors has changed as well. We used to be able to have dinners with them and they could drink whatever they wanted. That has changed. No more alcohol. We are not allowed to give them any alcohol. So it's great for me because I'm like, well, I don't want any anyway. So um, it's nice to see that times are changing. But yeah, I was caught up in all of that, and really kind of looking at myself going, what am I doing? I don't
Yeah.
even wear makeup anymore.
Yeah, I can imagine, and not even in the beauty industry, but like you said, I'm familiar slightly with that type of work environment, and I live with a husband who's a high level executive as well, and it's just tough, with where everything involves alcohol. But one thing that's amazing is the focus now, and I know you're a part of this movement because we hang with some of the same people on alcohol-free living. That we are living currently in some incredible times, right?
Yep.
Where the whole society is starting to shift slowly but surely
Yep.
into embracing alcohol-free lifestyles to the point where I think it might be starting to make a dent in some of the big alcohol um revenue.
It
So,
is.
well, to the point where now they're at least being forced to come up with their own product, much more product that
They
isn't
know
aligned
if they
with
don't
that.
get on,
So,
they're going to be left behind in the dust because it's going to be a $2 trillion industry by 2025. $2 trillion. I
yeah,
mean, when
it's
White Claw
incredible.
came out and said, and I mean, I don't really understand the whole White Claw thing because it's just seltzer water, but not, it's a little confusing to me, but like the like White Claw realizes that the millennials, the younger generation, aren't drinking really that much, and that is their target market, is that younger population. I
Yep.
know because my daughter's been targeted, and they just came out with a non-alcoholic White Claw, and I'm like, wow, this is really a sign of the times. But I just also heard that alcohol like recipes online are down. I think it's what was it,
Yes.
12%, and mocktail recipes are up 20% or something like
Yes.
that. I mean, don't quote me, but something like that. And then the dry January this year is supposed to be one of the biggest ever. So
Mhm.
it's happening. It's
Yeah, it
definitely
is.
happening.
I mean, the word is out, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the word is out on the not only just the dangers of addiction, right? Because we know this is true, but just the dangers of the substance in general. And I frankly had no idea as a long term drinker, child of heavy drinkers, parent, people are all around us who are always drinking. We live in a society that just worships alcohol. I had no idea what it was truly made from, like what the implications were of its use physically until I started really reading a bunch of quit lit and more literature. And that was only like 5 years ago. And I got sober a long time before that. And I also didn't know that people just didn't drink. Like some people just didn't drink. And even when I first got sober, I thought that was so weird. I'm like, what do you mean you don't drink? Like, I just didn't know that there are actually some people who just don't drink. They don't like it or whatever. But
Yeah.
that is actually true. And so more and more people are waking up to the possibilities of socializing, having parties, traveling, work events, things like this, all under the umbrella of alcohol-free living, which is just astounding to me. And it makes me very hopeful for my older teenagers
Yes.
who are in college and who will be setting forth into the workforce. And hopefully they can see, that this is an option and it's also super fun, and that no matter where you go, you can have special drinks and
Hmm.
feel very included no matter what. I mean, I'm in the midst of trying to plan some alcohol-free events for women right in my own little community, just some happy hours for moms and
Yeah.
like opportunities for people to socialize because nobody's doing that, at least in my area. So it's pretty
I just
cool.
think it's so great when we can be models for our kids, as well as,
Yes.
like you said, our community and our friends. Like, people are watching, right? Your kids are watching, and they're seeing that you're having fun without a drink.
Hmm.
So that message gets debunked. They see that you can go out and do all the things that you did when you drank, right? Like,
Right.
so it's just all these intoxicating lies that were sold and fed. And it's so, I mean, some of these shows that my kids watch, like there's so much heavy drinking on it, and it's so normalized, in this reality TV. And it's heartbreaking to me. But what I try to do with my kids is, again, bring out that curiosity card. Like, look, it started off like looking like everybody's having fun and everybody's arguing at the end. Everyone's
Yes.
in a fight. It's a
Yes.
hot mess. It's
Hmm.
chaotic. And that is where the drink leads you. And
Yeah.
so it's like waking them up. Like, I wish I had just someone kind of planting those little seeds for me all the way, or somebody that in 2019, I didn't have anybody that I knew that wasn't
Mhm.
drinking. And
Yeah.
so I understand, like, when you're caught up in it and everyone around you is doing it, and we really do live in an alcohol obsessed society.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to stand out and be, but I think the times are changing, and I'm just so excited to be on the right side of history, because I think alcohol will have a cigarette moment.
Hmm.
And I think it's coming in the next decade.
I
And
think
I
so
think
too.
as more studies come out, and the one that I think will lead to that moment is if it gets associated or tied in with creating or linked to dementia. Because that's a
Yes.
big, and the effects of alcohol in the brain, there isn't really one good thing I've ever seen. So it's
Good.
all bad.
Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. I want everyone to go read the book. It's called Intoxicating Lies. You can get on Amazon, right? Or
Yes,
on your
anywhere.
website, anywhere. So, hey, Meg, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And when people want to reach out or find you, where do you like to hang out the most?
So I'm primarily on Instagram. It's linked to my Facebook, but if you go to Intoxicating Lies book, that's my handle on Instagram. If you want a signed copy of the book, it is on my website, which is intoxicatinglies.com. And I am on Facebook as well under the title of my book, Intoxicating Lies: One Woman's Journey to Freedom from Gray Area Drinking.
Wonderful. And I really appreciate your book and your time today. I
Thank
know
you
my
for
community
having
is going
me.
to love it. So thank you again.